Shawn S.A. Cosby honed his style, one both brutal and elegant. Growing up impoverished in southeastern Virginia, his stories, filled with people struggling to escape crippling poverty and homelessness, mirror his own life, where he worked variously as a bouncer, a forklift driver, a roadie, a construction worker, a retail manager, and a mortuary attendant. But all the while, he wrote, because more than anything else, S.A. Cosby is a storyteller. He found success in short fiction. His title, Slant 6, was selected as a distinguished story in Best American Mystery Stories for 2016. And another title, The Grass Beneath My Feet, won the 2019 Anthony Award for Best Short Story. His debut crime novel, My Darkest Prayer, drew praise from critics and readers alike. Best-selling author John Land called it a brilliant and bracing slice of postmodern crime noir, while fellow author Eric Beetner noted, on nearly every page was a line I wish I'd written. His latest novel, Blacktop Wasteland, elevates Cosby to the top of the game. The story of Beauregard Bug Montage, a former getaway driver pulled back into that life by desperation and the love of family, is one of the most widely praised and hotly anticipated novels of the year. A thriller with white-knuckle car chases, heists gone wrong, tense standoffs, and the heartbreak of a man trying to escape his past when no one will let him. Blacktop Wasteland ensures S.A. Cosby will be at the wheel for a long time.
Hi, this is Shawn S.A. Cosby, and welcome to the Crew Reviews.
Hey, we want to welcome S.A. Shawn Cosby to the show. Welcome, my man. How are you?
Welcome, brother.
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been really looking forward to this for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of talk. A lot of talk
Just
about that.
Ignore the egg crate foam cushion in the back. So you get old when you get a bad back. So
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, now that you pointed that out, I cannot not see it.
Well, we're gonna let's just get right into this. Anyone following crime fiction or thrillers is hard pressed to not have heard about or seen the cover for Blacktop Wasteland.
Right.
And it's on everyone's must-read list for this summer. So it's certain to bring out a lot of new readers. What can you tell us about the story in the book for these new folks?
So basically, my elevator pitch, I learned that. I learned a lot of new things with this book. My elevator pitch is Blacktop Wasteland is Hella Hot Water meets No Country for Old Men set in the rural African-American South. So
That's a lot.
Okay. Hold on. Let me pour a drink. That's a lot to take in right there.
But it tells a story of Beauregard Bug Montage, an African-American mechanic, auto body shop worker who, as this book opens, is trying to keep his business afloat. His mortgage is due. He's losing business to a new shop that just opened up in town. His mother, who he has a contentious relationship with, a very toxic relationship with, is in a nursing home. She's dying, but the nursing home's about to kick her out because there's been some issue with her insurance. He has 3 children, a daughter from a previous relationship and 2 sons with his current wife, Kia. And of course, his kids they all need things. His daughter wants to go to college. His sons need braces and glasses. And as he says in the book, his wife wants to one day live in a house that has a foundation not set on wheels because they live in a trailer.
Jeez, yeah.
So what happens is a former associate from his previous life, when he was known as the best getaway driver on the East Coast, comes back into town, and as things are wont to do, he has a can't miss opportunity for Bug, and Beauregard's nickname is Bug. He has a can't miss opportunity for him, and they decide to rob a jewelry store, and things go awry. But it's also the story of a man who's trying to decide who he is and what kind of person he is, and whether the person he thinks he is the person that he actually is, or is there this criminal element to himself that he can't deny. And as he says in the book, or or as somebody says to him in the book, you know, a man can't be two types of beasts, and he's trying to decide what type of beast he is.
Man, that's
well, as Mike alluded to, Blacktop Wasteland has some of the best early response of any novel coming out this year. I mean, I've seen nothing but good things.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense when you were writing it that you were about to level up, so to speak?
No. What happened was I came out of okay, so a couple things happened. My first book, Darkest Prayer, was out with a small press, and they were doing a really good job, but it wasn't getting as much attention as we had hoped. And I was actually going to write a follow-up to that, and I ended up writing a short story for Todd Robinson, who was the editor of Thug Lit, and he was actually ending Thug Lit, and so this was going to be the last issue. And so I ended up writing a story for that called Slant 6. And it's basically a prequel to Blacktop Wasteland in a way. It has a character named Bug in it, and he tells a story of the 71 Plymouth Duster that sits in his garage. And some guys that he's doing a job for, they want to buy it, and he tells them it's not for sale. And so then he tells the story of why it's not for sale. And after I finished that story, it got some notoriety, I guess. It got a mention in Best American Mystery Short Stories.
Yeah.
And I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let that character go. And I ended up just deciding, I was like, I'm just going to write a novella about him and see what happens. And then that novella became a novel. And then somewhere along the way, the novel became sort of a catharsis for me personally. You know, and you know, I had, like a lot of people do, I had, you know, my father and I weren't as close as I like when we grew up. My mom and dad separated. And so this book was sort of a way of me doing two things at one time, killing two birds with one stone. I wanted to talk about my own personal feelings, but I also wanted to talk about, you know, poverty and class and race in the modern South. Right. And do it through the prism of a crime novel. So even when I finished it, I didn't think, I knew it was, I don't want to say better, I knew I was writing at a different level than I was with Darkest Prayer. I don't want to say it was better, it was just different, because Darkest Prayer was really a fun, pulpy book, you know, like in the tradition of Chandler and you know, Chandler and Hammett and those guys. I wanted to write something like that. And so Blacktop Wasteland was different because it was more personal. I was going deeper into the characters' lives, but I didn't think it was necessarily better than Darkest Prayer. It was just different. I definitely did not think any of the things that are happening with it now would happen at all.
Shawn, you write like Buck Drives. It's lean, it's clean, it's fast, but that just doesn't happen. And it's not something that you can necessarily like learn in school. It takes work, a lot of hard work. How did you develop that writing skill and that style?
So I think a lot of it came from not having a lot of time to write.
Get to the point.
Growing up, like I said, in my life, it somewhat mirrors Bug's. My mom and dad separated at an early age. My mom is actually a paraplegic. And so growing up, I had to help her with a lot of things. And I didn't necessarily have a lot of time to write because I was helping my mom with things. I was trying to work. I was trying to go to college, and that didn't work out. And when I came out of college, I went right to work. And I usually had to work, you know, if you don't have, a lot of times you don't have a college degree, you have to work kind of menial or tough jobs. And so I just didn't have a lot of time to write. So most of my time when I actually got to write was either on my lunch break or right after work before I went to sleep or in the morning before I went to work. And so I just didn't have time to write really verbose prose. You know, I kind of had to get right to the meat of the story. I still wanted to throw like cool metaphors and similes in there, but you know, I didn't have the time to go on like a tangent about, you know, the shape and interior life of a teacup. You know, I kind of had to get through the main points of the plot. And so that plus I started doing live readings back in like 2013, 2012 at Noirs at the bar.
Yeah.
Again, you only have 5 to 7 minutes. And so I just started writing stories that were very sparse in detail. Plus, I'm horrible I'm horrible at like interior dimensions. Like if you read my early stuff, there's a house. If there's a house in it, it's like the house of leaves. It's like 35-foot long hallway, 2-foot wide bathrooms, and people got. And so I'm horrible at the dimensions of
You
stuff.
got to work on that.
I got
So I
people.
started throwing that kind of stuff out. I'm just gonna say it's a house. They're in a house.
It's square. It's good.
So that kind of developed my style.
Oh, okay.
Dude, that's so cool.
So your wife will design your house if you build your house.
That's already out of the way, out of my hands. I got nothing.
No, man, wait, 35-foot long hallways are kind of cool, man. So
We're bowling.
throw that in there.
When people hear country and they hear getaway cars, first thing that comes to a lot of folks' minds is the old moonshine runners, kind of the old early NASCAR drivers. Did any inspiration from that era find its way into Blacktop Wasteland?
Oh yeah, there's a famous one of the first black NASCAR drivers. Richard Pryor made a movie about him called Grease Lightning. Wendell Scott. And the funny thing he said about that is, I did go into Blacktop Wasteland with a distinct agenda that I wanted to write. A lot of people think when you hear the word country or rural that you're talking about just good old boys or just rednecks.
Dukes of Hazzard.
And there's this idea that African Americans in the South are either like just sort of cordoned off, and we don't appear in a lot of like rural noir fiction. You know, we may be dressing, we may be sidekicks, but we're not the main character a lot. Or there's some people that feel like, oh, well, you're down there, you know, you guys must be subservient and submissive. And I wanted to really shine light on the world that I grew up in. You know, my family goes back 5 or 6 generations in my small town in Matthews, Virginia, in the South. And so I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the experiences of modern rural noir. There's a lot with a cast of black characters, or mostly black characters. I think there's also a thought in publishing and in literature that if you write about black characters in the South, it either has to be, and no offense to these types of books, but it either has to be this really long-suffering, almost Christian mythology story, like Color Purple, which is a magnificent book. No, don't get me wrong, it's a magnificent book. Or it has to be a quote-unquote urban story or street lit. And that wasn't my experience. And so I wanted to talk about the life that I lived and the people that I grew up with and the characters that I knew. So I distinctly was influenced by like Wendell Scott. I was influenced by movies like Gator and White Lightning and Moonrunners and Dirty Mary and Crazy Larry. But I was also inspired by, you know, the characters that I grew up with, the faces that I saw. And so all of that came together as inspiration for Blacktop Wasteland.
Nice.
Nathan Waymaker from your novel My Darkest Prayer is like Bug in the sense that he's an utterly human protagonist. There's always this tug of war between his darker instincts and his desire to be a better man. So can you tell us a little bit about your approach to character? Your stories clearly entertain, but is there a conscious exploration of human nature involved when you set out to write these stories?
Somebody asked me one time, what if I had to like distill my writing motto or my thesis down into one phrase, what would it be? And for me, it's everybody hurts.
Yeah.
And I like writing about characters, whether they're villains, whether they're heroes, whether they're anti-heroes. I like writing about the things that hurt them, that shape them. And I like writing about the way they deal with pain because, you know, to quote a philosopher of our times, Method Man, everybody knows about pain. You know, the pain, everybody understands. Everybody understands that. Or like REM says, everybody hurts. And so even my heroes, I want to establish their identities through how they deal with adversity and how they deal with the things that hurt them and how they come out of the other side of that. Like Nathan, you know, Nathan has lost his parents. He lost his job. He lives in basically a closet in his cousin's funeral home. But yet he still keeps his sense of humor. He still keeps his sense of honor. And yes, he has a bad side, a bad temper. And, you know, you wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of him in a fight. But he's also the type of person that would help old ladies across the street. And so I don't think that's a character that doesn't exist. I don't think that's a cliche. I think there are a lot of people like that, that are multifaceted like that. But I always shape my characters through the prism of what has hurt them and how they deal with it. Because all the difference between a hero and a villain is how they deal with the pain that's inside them.
Yeah.
Well, if you allow me to pay you a compliment, that's the authenticity about your writing that sticks with me, is that they're not supermen and they're not super villains. They're people with, like you said, with flaws, and how they deal with those flaws defines, what side of the good guy bad line sort of they fall on, I guess.
Yeah.
Shawn, you and I had a conversation, Shawn Cameron, recently about writing villains and how it's somewhat easier because villains can do good, they can do bad, whereas a hero really can't do bad. And I always found it easier to write from a villain's perspective, from the villain, your villain, your bad guy point of view, because that's really humanity. Like you really can't find heroes. Even the heroes in our world, they do bad things. Everyone does a bad thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Shawn, so the crime mystery thriller genre is filled with lots of fantastic writers, including yourself. Some would say it's an oversaturated market. How do you think you stand out among your peers?
I don't think there are a lot of African American men writing about Southern fiction.
Nope.
So there's that. But I think if you ask me, like, one of my good friend of my best friends is a writer named Eric Pruitt. And, Eric and I write about a lot of the same thing. Eric writes about Southern fiction. He just had a book a couple of years ago nominated for an Anthony Award called What We Reckon. Mm-hmm. And the difference between me and him is Eric writes from a point of view where everyone is twisted and bad, but he makes you care about them. He makes you have sympathy for them. What I do is I write about people who are twisted and bad, and I try to make you care about them in spite of their actions. So not really have sympathy for them. A lot of people tell me, like, when they read my stuff, it's like, oh, I'm so mad at this character, but I want him or her to succeed. And I definitely try to toe that darker line. I try to go closer. If everything is shade of gray, I'm definitely going toward the darker side of that shade as opposed to the lighter side. I also think, I don't know if it makes me stand out, but I think just having a unique perspective. Like I said, again, I'll reiterate this. There's an idea, I think, in literature that if you're an African American, you either have to write about something happening in New York or Philly or Chicago. Mm-hmm. You have to write, if you're going to write about the South, you have to write about how horrible it is. And I think the South is horrible. It has horrible aspects, but it also has beautiful aspects. I mean, I grew up in a small town where I learned to swim in a creek, and I grew up with a magnolia tree right outside my grandparents. We had a one-story house, and it was a magnolia tree right outside the window that you literally could jump out of the window and climb the magnolia tree. That's how I used to cheaply skate when I was older. When I got my keys.
Crack open that window, climb through.
Going down the steps, so you had to get on. We had to go out the tree and then kind of hop to the ground. And those types of memories are what allow me to see the South for the full scope and width and breadth of what it is, the beauty and the grotesqueness. And I don't know if there's a whole lot of writers writing in that way. So
right. Your evolution as a writer, I mean, you've had some really strong success in the short story kind of format, and we've all written here in that as well. And short story fiction is a beast for anyone who hasn't tried it yet. Doing it right is tough as hell. So what did you learn from that medium that now influences you as a full-length novelist?
Get to the point.
Yeah.
I learned that with short stories. I've been very blessed to have good editors when I focused on short stories. I started out as a short story writer, and I didn't think I had it in me to write a full-length book. I really didn't, because I kept having ideas that would go, as we all know, everybody's got that file of half formed ideas or stories that you thought were going to go somewhere, and then you get to the end of a sentence and like, I don't know what the hell's happening next. And, I remember I got to go on vacation to New York, and I got to meet Todd Robson again, the editor and publisher of Thug Lit, and I got to meet him in person because when in his day job is he works at a bar, and so me and him were sitting there talking and drinking, and he asked me, he said, and he lives in New York, but he's from Boston, so he's got this really tough, generic Northeast accent. So he's like, so when are you going to write a freaking book? And I'm like, I said, I don't know, man. I don't think I got any ideas. He said, don't you work at a funeral home? That's a ready-made idea right there.
He's got a point.
I was like, right, I should do something with that. I said, because my thing was I wanted to write a private eye novel, but in a small town, it's never a whodunit. Everybody knew who did it. Is can you prove it?
Yeah, true.
I just didn't see where a professional private eye would be able to survive in a small town. And, back and forth, him and I talking, and I came with the idea of making Nathan sort of a troubleshooter, an easy, raw, unlicensed private eye.
Right.
And from there, the story just unspooled. And the thing that I learned, in addition to get to the point with short stories, was I learned how to create tension in a short amount of time.
Right.
And how to really, one thing I think I was blessed because I started out with short stories is ending a chapter on a cliffhanger, on an interesting sentence.
Yep.
Because a lot of times with short stories, you got to get that sting in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so that last line, especially with a short story, is really important. And so I kind of translated that into writing chapters. So I always try to end chapters with a really either pithy line or something that's going to hopefully make the reader can't wait to get to the next chapter. So
flip the page. Yeah.
So those mechanical things that I learned with short story writing, I just transferred to writing longer pieces.
Yep. Makes sense.
This will hopefully be the most generic question we asked today, but I like it because it's different for everybody, and even though the question's generic, the answers certainly aren't. When did this writing journey start for you, and who were the writers that influenced you along the way?
When I was 6 years old, we had a contest at my school. We had to rewrite the ending of Twas the Night Before Christmas.
That's
And,
God.
I love it.
Wait, was there a squirrel?
There was no squirrel, but I wrote that the reindeers revolted against Santa.
Oh my gosh. You're 6? Oh.
Yeah, you fat ass.
I wrote that they revolted against Santa, and they decided that the kids shouldn't have to wait till one time a year to get their toys. It was a whole like Karl Marx socialism, give the proletariat the rules of production type thing. And my teacher did not like it, but but it was submitted. All the stories were submitted to our local paper, and mine got picked. And it was published in the paper. It was my first published story. Then you paid. I got paid an exposure.
You paid. Dude, if you got paid at 6, that would have been fantastic.
But after that, I kind of played around with it. I didn't really get serious about it. I thought I wanted to tell stories. I grew up in a household. My uncles, my mom, my aunts, my dad are all great gregarious, oral storytellers. And so I kind of wanted to do something, but I wasn't sure. And then I kind of fooled around with it, and then in high school, in the 11th grade, my 11th grade English teacher, Mr. Jeff Bone, he's actually the Darkest Prayer is dedicated to him. Jeff Bone, he started giving me books outside of the regular syllabus because he thought I would appreciate them. And he started giving me books like classic books like Frank Norris's McTeague and, Joseph Conrad's The Secret Agent and stuff like that. And I started getting more serious about writing. I could see where writing could be something maybe I could do. But then I also started reading like Stephen King and Clive Barker and Elmore Leonard and Walter Mosley and guys like that. And I also saw writing could be fun. And so as time went on, I kind of wanted to meld those things together. I think I went through a period my first year in college where I was trying to be like a literary writer, and I bought a beret and all that. But
Wait, are there pictures of that?
Please tell me
I
this.
hope not. I hope no. Yeah, see, I went to college in time before social media, so thank you.
Thank God.
Wait, what color was your beret?
It was a blue beret and it had the Che Guevara star in the middle.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to impress a girl.
Of course you were.
We've all done
the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, but what got to me, and no offense to anyone who's a literary writer who writes in that style, the literary writing bored me. Like it just took too long to get to the point. You know, there's a book that and it's a great book. It's funny. I read 1,000 Acres by James Smiley when I was in college, and it's a great book. It's a really well written book, but it just bored me to death. And I'm like, just kill him already, Jesus. And so I realized that okay, I'm not going to be writing that. And so I started out writing horror and sci-fi, and I just couldn't find my bearings. And then, you know, as life has wanted to do, things happen, and I was engaged, and I moved away, and there was a whole 4-year period that I won't talk about. And, when I came out of that relationship and I came back to Virginia, I was about 29 or 30, and I really decided I'm going to get serious about writing. I'm going to finish something. I don't care what it is. I'm going to finish it. And I finished this novella, and it got rejected. But I got a lot of personal rejections. I got a lot of like handwritten notes.
That's good.
Because this is still back in the time where you're still sending in actual physical copies. And even when I started sending this stuff electronically, it got rejected. But I got a lot of good rejections. A lot of rejections where people like, hey, keep trying or send us something else. And I just stuck with it. I just was stubborn. I'm like, even if I never get published, I just like writing. I like showing it to my friends. I like showing it to my little writing group that I was in. And so I just plugged away at it. And I was very blessed because I'll tell you this real quick. So this is a little backstory of how Darkest Prayer came about. So I've been published in Thug Lit a couple times, and an agent reached out to me, who shall remain nameless. An agent reached out to me and was like, hey, I want to work with you. And I said, well, that's great. I got this book called Darkest Prayer, My Darkest Prayer. He's like, oh, I like that. Let me see. Let me read it. So he reads it. He's like, oh, this is a real good book. I hate the title. I was like, okay. So he's like, we changed the title to Handle the Bodies. And I was like, but that's just the first sentence. I don't think that's a good title. No, trust me. I know what I'm doing. And I just knew from that moment that this isn't going to work. We're not on the same page. And so the book got rejected a lot, 63 times. It got rejected 3 times. Jeez. And I always got the 3/4 rejection letter, where the first 3/4 of the letter is like, we love the writing, we love the dialogue, the characters. We don't know what to do with it, so good luck. And so I got a bunch of those. And finally, I went to the agent, and in a very amicable way, I said, you know, I don't think this is working out. I don't think we're on the same page. And he was very gracious, like, well, you know, something else comes up, come back to me. And I'm like, all right. So I ended up selling Darkest Prayer on my own to an independent publisher called Intrigue Publishing, and they are great people to work with. And then in the process of promoting Darkest Prayer, I saved my money and went to BoucherCon in 2018.
Yeah, smart.
And I'm walking around BoucherCon, and I'm meeting Jordan Harper, and I'm meeting all these great famous writers, and you know, Stephen Hunter's there, and you know, and I got my copy of Dirty White Boys. I'm trying to get him to sign it, and I freaked him out, I think. And you know, it's funny because I don't realize I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'1" and around 260, 275, and I didn't realize how small he was.
Yeah, Stephen Hunter's not a big dude.
With his little head.
And so I followed him onto an elevator, and I think that kind of freaked him out. And I was like, Mr. Hunter, I love your writing. And he's like, I'm just going to my room. And so
I'll go with you.
Yeah, I'll come with you. So anyway, my friend Eric Pruitt was responsible for putting together a panel at the 2018 BoucherCon called Southern Fiction. And he was like, hey, you should be on this panel. I was like, man, I only got one book and it's not even out yet. And, you know, Eric, in his inimitable way, because he's my brother, I love him to death, he was like, man, can we curse?
Yeah, hell yeah, you can curse.
He's like, man, fuck that. You gonna be on the panel. So I was like, okay. Wait. So he got me on the panel, and and it was me, Ace Atkins, Alex Segura, Steph Post, and Eric. And so
wow, that's a good company, man.
Oh man, it was a great panel. We had so much fun. And at the end of the panel, we took questions. And this lady stood up, because we had talked about Southern fiction, about race and class and poverty and the history of the Confederacy and how the South, is structured and maybe it can move forward and what it needs to do and all that. And this lady got up and she said, I don't have a question, I have a comment. And I remember turning to Ace Atkins, he was sitting next to me, and I was like, buckle up, here we go. And so this lady said, and I'm paraphrasing, yeah, the antebellum time period was bad for some people, but I thought we had better manners back then. It was such a beautiful time period. I feel like, I'm a white woman, and I feel like white people are going to be the minority soon and all this stuff. Oof. So you can hear a pin drop in the room.
Yeah.
And then Eric said, well, do you want to take that comment, Shawn? And I was like, I would love to. And so I turned to the lady and I said, I understand it's a lot going on, and you may feel that you're being pushed out. So I, as a Black person, am going to help you. I'm going to teach you how to be a minority. I'm going to show you how to drive while Black and how to shop while Black. I'm going to teach you how to catch a cab in New York. We're going to work to this together. And
her eyes go wide.
Yes, and she left. Like, she left. And after that, everybody laughed, and it kind of broke the tension. And a guy came up to me after the panel, and I was rushing because I was trying to get to Jordan Harper's signing. I wanted him to sign my copy of She Ride Shotgun. So I'm running through the lobby, and this guy was like, excuse me. I turn around, this very neat, bespectacled man, and he's like, hey, my name's Josh Gessler, and I really liked what you were talking about in there. And I just, do you have anything you're working on? And I said, well, I got this Southern crime novel with a Black lead protagonist. He said, well, look, here's my card. When you get home from this, conference, give me a call or hit me up or send me the book. I'm like, all right. So I got home and I didn't send it because I had a bad experience with an agent before, and I wasn't going to do it. And then finally I was like, all right, what the hell? I got nothing to lose, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I sent it in, and that was in November of 2018. In December of 2018, he signed me. And in February of 2019, he sold it to Flatiron Books for a 2-book deal.
That's freaking fantastic.
Nice. Love that.
Dude, that's a fantastic story.
It's great.
I tell you, they're not perfect, obviously, but the conferences are, to me, it's such a unique place and unique among other industries. You go and you're shoulder to shoulder with, or in the elevator with Stephen Hunter, but you have this access to people who can give you advice, who can give you honest feedback. The only place you ever get honest feedback is from other writers,
Right. Yes.
I think we all met at Thriller Fest, and we're looking forward to BoucherCon next year. We haven't been there yet, but they're phenomenal, and I love hearing stories like the story you just told.
Right.
Open that.
That's what they should do. That's what those
I love conferences. I wasn't. It's funny because I had never been to one before, and I wasn't gonna go. And then I was like, as I make a lot of decisions in life, I was like, oh, fuck it, see what happens. And I loved it. I had so much fun. And, it's funny, like you said, you can be in the bar at BoucherCon talking to a buddy of yours that you knew, that you guys are trying to get on the come up. And James Patterson walked by, and he's nice as hell. Oh, I got to tell you guys a story.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to tell you how I met Lee Child. So this is at BoucherCon 2018. And it was in Florida. It was in St. Petersburg. And the hotel had this beautiful bar. One half of the bar was inside the lobby, and the other half was outside on this huge wraparound porch, right? So I'm out there on the porch. Me and Eric, we've already been drinking. It's like 3 o'clock. We've already had a couple cocktails. Yeah. And Eric's like, hey, man, I'm going to find a couple of our other friends that were there, and we're all going to get a shot. I'm like, okay. I said, well, I'm going to stay here and save these seats, right? So I'm standing by the bar, and all right, so to preface the story, I didn't know that Lee Child was English. I loved his book, but I didn't know he was British. And 2, I didn't know he's like 9 feet tall. So, this very tall, very classy British man comes to the bar, and he's trying to get the bartender's attention, but he's doing it in a very classy British way. So he's like, pardon me, excuse me, pardon me. And she's just not paying mind to him. I was like, are you trying to get her attention? And he's like, yes. So I said, I'll do it. So I was like, hey, you girl. Then she turns around and she comes over and I said, this gentleman like a drink. And I'm waiting for my friend so you can take him. And he was like, oh, I owe you a drink. I said, no, man, it's no problem. He said, no, please, I owe you a drink. So as we're talking, another writer friend of mine comes up and he says, oh my God, do you know Lee Child? And I said, no, but I hope to meet him. I want him to sign one of my books. And this guy taps me on the shoulder and I look up and he says, I'm Lee Child. I'm like, oh my God. And he bought us all a shot of 25-year Glenfiddich Scotch.
Oh my God!
Well,
and then he blurbed your book. What?
I guess he remembered me. I think.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That's a beautiful story.
That is amazing.
It was so crazy.
Tell me another story. Hurry up.
He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, as far as a famous writer or whatever.
Yeah,
he's so nice. He's super cool.
I was stunned when I found out he was British, but only because he knows more about small town America in the most random places than anybody I've ever met. You know?
Oh yeah.
He'll describe a town, and then you'll go to that town. It's exactly like he described.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when the hell does he have time to do all this?
He's an amazing guy. Really, like I said, super nice.
Okay, so there's LA crime fiction, New York City crime fiction. There's even like Deep South crime fiction. But you'd be hard-pressed to find a ton of Mid-Atlantic crime fiction. I live in Mid-Atlantic. What makes that region fertile territory for crime fiction? Obviously it is. Other than the fact that you live in Virginia, are there other draws to craft stories set in this geographical area that you and I both call home?
I think it's because if you read a novel, like if you read The Force by Don Winslow, and they talk about the iron pipeline from 95 south up to New York. They always talk about what happens on that end. Mm-hmm. But I look at it from the opposite view. Like if they're getting a truckload of guns in Manhattan that they've got to keep out of the hands of nefarious characters, then how do those guns get on their way? Yeah. And most of the time, it's a couple of good old boys from down south who find themselves in a pinch and they rob a pawn shop, or it's a guy and a girl who are out in the mountains and they have a dream that they want to get on the road together and then run away together. And so they rob a local drug dealer, or it's, a family man like Bug who finds himself pressed up against the wall. And I think this, because of the location, because you're in the south, but you're not, and you're in the north, but you're not really, you're kind of this nebulous area. There's a lot of culture clash, and wherever there's culture clash, there's crime, there's violence, there's misunderstanding. And there's also the idea that it's, I'm only an hour and a half from DC.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm also only 2 hours from, Charlotte, North Carolina. And so there's a whole area of people and, like I said, communities and cultures that clash together. And I think that gives the Mid-Atlantic area a lot of fertile ground for stories. I grew up in a small town where, I'm old enough to remember stories of how people in small town handle their own problems.
Yeah.
There's people who I grew up near the water, so I grew up with a waterman community. So I've heard stories of people that went missing to end up in crab pots. So there's a lot of outhouses in the South. I'll put it like that. And also in that Southern Gothic tradition of crime. There's there's a reason why, like, Eudora Welty and Flannery O'Connor and William Faulkner and William Gay and Charles Willeford and Harry Crews and people write about the South, the languid, turgid emotions that run deep, and I'll posit this. I always tell people, it's scary to be in a dark alley in New York, or it's scary to be, in a basement in Chicago. But there's very few places in the world that are scarier than a dark country road in the middle of the night with no lights. Or if you're on that road and you see a set of headlights coming and you're not sure that they're friendly. And so, I think those are the traits that lend this area an incredible atmospheric tone that you can put into your writing.
Well, I'll speak for all three of us guys. This is going to be your breakout book, man. We just know it. We feel it. I mean, anybody wants to take that bet, I will put it all down there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you find that people treat you differently now after you, especially after winning the Anthony Award, right? I mean,
let me tell you. Okay.
What?
So I'll use BoucherCon again as a fertile story ground, for a tale. So the first night of BoucherCon last year, I was nominated for an Anthony, but I really didn't think I was going to win. I seriously did not think. I was so sure I wasn't going to win, I didn't take a suit for the banquet. And I had to run out the day of and find like a button-down shirt. But anyway, so I come in that Thursday, and I run into a friend of mine, the writer James D.F. Hanna. He's also known as Chad Williamson. Hanna's is a pseudonym. And he had never been to BoucherCon before, but he was nominated for a Seamus Award. So him and I have been friends on Facebook for a long time, and we hook up at the bar, and we're talking. And there were a couple famous writers that will remain nameless that I try to get their attention or just say hi and say, hey, I'm a really fan of your work. And those jokers wouldn't have spit on me if I was on fire.
Really?
So
wow.
the night of the award ceremony, when I won the award, and I literally catered around for an hour, I just had it at the bar.
You look at this shit. Look at it right here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Look at it.
It's like, I can't fucking believe this. So,
what an awesome feeling.
a couple of those writers I had tried to speak to previously bought me a drink, and so that was really my first experience in a new, wider world that people are going to treat you differently from now on.
Yeah.
Those are the big things. I mean, little things are like, people ask me to submit a short story for a collection instead of me begging to be in the collection.
Mm-hmm.
That's
like
cool
that.
Feeling.
Yeah, it is. Especially when they're like kind of, like I said, kind of mean to you before. So,
Yeah.
I think I get a lot of like. I noticed this, like I said, before the apocalypse. I was in New York, and I went to meet my publishers at Flatiron, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling, It's you go to this big room, and there's like whatever if you want fruit or wine or whatever, they'll get it for you. And I'm really not used to that, Like
I'll have that muffin.
Yeah, you want a brand muffin? It's like
No poppy seeds,
really,
damn it.
Like, they ask you, do you want it gluten free? And I'm like, I don't care. What?
I want it dead.
So you get those little experiences. But my friends, like the people I came up with, and I mean, when I say came up with, I mean in this writing game,
Yeah.
they're always the same. We look out for each other. I'm cheering them along as they're cheering me on. Like, good friend of mine, like I said, I mentioned Eric Pruitt or Kelly Garrett or Alex Segura or Steve Weddle or folks like that. Rob Hart is a great friend, and we pretty much stay the same. Nothing's changed there, but you can tell that there are people who are kind of looking at you a little different.
Yeah, I think the three of us, I get as much excitement about hearing opportunities that are coming their way as I do from myself, and so, and we'll keep each other grounded. Believe me. Well, I'll tell Shawn.
That's the truth.
When something sucks,
below ground is what they actually.
They dig a little bit and put you down in there.
Oh yeah, my friend Kelly is one of the best people about keeping my head small and keeping me grounded. Because I'd shown her early draft of Blacktop, and it ended very differently than the current one ends. And she messaged me, and she's like, if you let this book end like this, I will be pissed off at you for at least a month. And I'm like, why? And then she went on to explain why, and it actually was a really good reason. And I'm like, all right. So, whenever I start thinking I'm hot shit, I remember that conversation. So.
Yep, totally agreed, man.
Well, Shawn, in this genre, and really in most genres, outside of maybe pure literary, series are kind of the order of the day. To me, you've created two really tremendous protagonists in both Blacktop Wasteland and My Darkest Prayer. They're the kind of men I want to see more of, whether it's sequel, prequel, or given your gift for language, I'll read their damn diaries. So do you feel a pull to a series? Is that like when you signed a 2-book deal, was that the understanding it'd be a series, or?
Well, I think I put it like this: with Darkest Prayer, I want to continue that. I have a couple more ideas for Nathan and Skunk and the crew. And And I would love to revisit, that world and revisit Nathan. It's a different experience writing him than it is writing about Bug. That being said, I didn't have an intention to write about Bug after this. When I first wrote the book, I had a very strong idea that this was a finite story. But as he did before, he grew out of a short story, and now he's grown out of one book. And I definitely have an idea that I'm working on right now that's probably going to be a follow-up in a couple years. But the second book in my two-part deal is actually when I started right after I finished Blacktop. It's a revenge novel. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's in the revision stage. Now I got my notes back. Another thing that'll keep you grounded when you get your notes back from the editor.
100%. I totally agree.
You start thinking you on a pedestal. Read some of those markup notes. But it's a novel about two fathers, one black, one white, both ex-cons, whose sons are murdered, and their sons are gay, and they were married. And so these fathers were they didn't have a great relationship with their sons. In fact, they were downright homophobic to their sons. And so now that they're murdered, they decide to try to investigate it and find out who did it and get revenge for their children, but also kind of redeem themselves for the way they raised them.
Right.
I tell people it's the Defiant Ones meets Rolling Thunder. And so that book is in the pipeline right now. And that was a standalone. So I kind of have ideas that I want to do standalones, but then like characters like Bug, I mean, there's a whole world at the end of Blacktop Wasteland that I want to explore, and I want to see what happens next, and see how the people that are left standing deal with again, like I said, that pain. And so and hopefully if the stars align, I'll be able to one day go back to writing about Nathan and Skunk and tell another one of this. The Nathan and Skunk books are way more, I won't say fun. They're a little bit more fun because it's a little more freewheeling. Whereas with Bug, I'm really delving into some deep issues. With Nathan, it's a lot of fighting and cussing and drinking, and it's and his benevolent sociopath sidekick Skunk, and so I always give him the best lines, and so it's a little more just freewheeling to write about him, whereas writing about Bug is really definitely getting in the headspace. It's really getting in a world view that I really have to get deep into, and it's cathartic, but it can also be exhausting, but in the best way, like after a good workout. Because I think Bug is a character that is dealing with a lot of things internally and externally, and so it's hard for me to I can't be flippant with him in a way.
Yeah, right. Benevolent.
Well, I'm crossing my fingers, and my guess is that Blacktop Wasteland is going to shine a brighter light on my darkest prayer. Because I don't know about you, but like when I read a novel of somebody that comes out and I find out they have books before, I'm going back and reading those damn things because I want to read everything by him. So crossing my fingers for you, man.
I'm seeing my royalties from Darkest Prayer go up, so that's good.
Yeah,
it was a good thing.
Compliments of the three of us have given you, whatever a dime or whatever you get from us.
Hey, Shawn, can we get real for a second? We talked about your writing career. We talked about your books. Let's talk about a little bit about the industry.
Okay.
You won't find much diversity at the top of the thriller genre. That may be changing. There seems to be more agents and publishers advocating for new voices from those who have been historically marginalized. And although you're a relatively newcomer to the industry, do you think it's just lip service, or do you think the industry is actually changing and becoming better?
I think it's a two-sided coin. That right now, diversity is the hotness, as the kids say, and everybody wants a piece of the hotness. Everybody wants, at the end of the day, I love to write, but this is a business, and I think that's anybody that's listening who's a writer, don't ever forget that it's a business and treat it as such. There are people that you're going to meet that you'll love as a friend, but that may not be great business partners, and there are people that you'll meet that'll promise you the moon. And I know that hunger when you want to get published. It's like before you've been published and somebody coming and promising you a lot of stuff, it's like you're a starving man and somebody's sitting a smorgasbord in front of you. And you don't care whether the food is rotten. You just want to eat. And so I think there are a lot of people that need to look at that before they sign deals, before they put their name on the dotted line. But like I said, I do think that right now this is the hotness. But what I don't want to have happen and what I hope doesn't happen is that diversity is a trend. I want it, hopefully it becomes just, and when I say just another, I mean in the idea of not in a banal way, but in a way that it's just another part of the industry. That these stories are just as important as everyone else's. And I mean, I think everybody in publishing, but especially the big five, have a lot of work to do to make publishing more inclusive. I think that some people are doing it, and I think some people are paying lip service to it. I can only speak to what I've experienced with Flatiron, but they've been behind me 100% with the book. They put a lot of juice behind it, so to speak, and I have nothing but good things to say about them. That being said, you know, I'm sure we all saw a hashtag recently called Publishing Paid Me, and you know, it's. I wasn't surprised by it because I was pretty sure that's how things were going anyway. But it still was shocking to see it in black and white, pun intended. And so I think if books like Blacktop Wasteland, if books like My Sister the Serial Killer, if books like The Vanishing Half, if books like those do reasonable or even extraordinary numbers, I mean, Britt Bennett just opened up at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And so if books like that, and she's the author of The Vanishing Half, and she's an African-American woman. So if books like that turn dollars, you know, then you'll see diversity become a larger part of the publishing whole. You know, Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And so
if there's a market for it, right? I mean, if people are hungry for it.
I think what happened, and I've talked to Todd Robinson about this, I think what happened is a lot of publishers feel like their market is very niche, you know, and they don't think certain aspects of certain communities read. But I'm gonna tell you right now, like, I'll tell you from my point of view, I grew up in a house full of African-American women that read all the time. You know, my grandma read true stories and Harlequin romances. My mom read books, all the horror novels and sci-fi novels. I had an uncle who had been in the military that used to read Travis McGee novels and give them to me. So there are books out there, and there are readers out there for them. And I think it takes the publishing industry to get off their ass and get behind the books that have a chance. You know, I think that if they're able to really see that there's an underserved market out there, then maybe in 10 years, we won't be having this same kind of conversation.
Yeah, you want to get to the point where nobody's concerned about what the numbers are because the numbers are so normal. You know, it's like the number you don't think about, oh, well, he's a famous Black author. No, he's a famous author. You know, it's like
exactly.
Walter Mosley.
You know,
you mentioned Walter Mosley earlier. Walter Mosley sticks out as a very successful African-American actor. Why? Not because that does not denigrate his work. It's just the fact that there weren't a lot of people in his peer group who were African-American. So he sticks out. You want to get to the point where he doesn't stick out.
Kelly Garrett, when she won her Anthony for Hollywood Homicide, gave a statistic. And I remember being in the audience, and there were people in the audience that did not want to believe this statistic. But if you take publishing and go back 100 years, there have only been about 80 people of color that have a publishing contract with a big 5 publishing company. 100 years.
I've never heard that.
80. There's only 80 or so.
It's criminal.
80 to 85 they've had a publishing contract. I remember sitting at a table with some folks, and it was an older lady, and she was like, I don't think that's true. And I tapped on the shoulder. It is. And so I think once publishing like I said, sees that there's a very underserved market out there, and that the stories that African Americans, Latinx Americans, LGBTQ Americans have to tell, and those stories, that there are people hungry for those stories.
Yeah, they resonate with people. Yeah.
I think once they get past that, I think, like I said again, I think that things will change. But they've got to really want it and got to be committed to it. Here's the thing. Blacktop Wasteland has a black protagonist, and it takes place in the African-American rural South. And yeah, I'm a black person. I wrote it from a certain perspective. But at the same time, there are themes in Blacktop Wasteland that I believe are universal, that anybody can connect with, about being poor and being in poverty in the South and struggling and trying to be a better person. It's the hardest thing in the world is for somebody to tell you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but you don't have any fucking boots.
You got straps. Yeah, WB.
Yeah, and so I think it's the duty and the job of publishers to look at readers and say, hey, don't say, well, I'm not going to connect with that book because I'm not. No, you need to broaden your horizon. You need to open your mind, and the rest will follow.
You made a comment. Yeah. You made a comment that I think is absolutely true, and you said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, it's really hard to rise above your circumstances if you're at the bottom, if everything is like stacked to keep you there. Like, if nobody wants you above that bottom rung.
Right.
It's hard to be the best version of yourself when the whole world is telling you to be the worst.
That's your quote.
Yeah, and it's difficult.
You got it right. You quoted yourself. Right.
You quoted yourself right. There was something you put on, Shawn, that you put on social media that just it was your words, but it hurt me. You said, you could win so many awards, and I'm going to paraphrase you. You can win so many awards where you just there's a section of the American populace or humanity that will just look at you as just like an uppity black man.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like a damn good writer.
Yeah.
I
think writers. Yeah. There are writers that I've, and not a lot. I'm gonna preface this with it. Not a lot. I have been in different genre. Like, I've been to different conventions for different genres, and crime writing is without a doubt the most welcoming one. That being said, there are writers that will look at you and will always think that you're a charity case, that you didn't earn it,
right?
That you don't deserve to be here. And it's hard. It hurts because, like I said, you can be an Anthony Award-winning novelist, time with a top 5 publisher with a book that's coming out, and there are people that will still look at it like something was handed to you. And not to be vulgar, I work my fucking ass off.
Right.
I put a lot of miles on my car, running down the East Coast, going to live readings. I've slept on people's couches so I could be at a conference at an 8 o'clock panel in the morning because I knew it was important to be seen. I've stayed up to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning rewriting a sentence or a chapter to just get it just right. I mean, it's a lot of, and that's any writer. Any writer works that way, but not every writer gets the same respect for that.
Right. Yeah. So why does it have to be different because you're black and I'm white, right? We're putting the work in.
Exactly.
Well, I think you're going to be the voice to add to that list of people to bring more awareness. And truly, really, I think you've earned it. Like you said, you busted your ass and you belong there, not because of your skin color, but because of the work that you put in. So
yeah,
it's a damn good book.
Thank you so much.
Dude, I honestly, like, a lot of times I'll jot down phrases in a book that like stick with me, and there's so many. Like, you have so many great, like, turn of phrase. I love it when you can read it. When I write a line, like, every now and then I'll write a line. I'll go, oh man, I love that freaking line. I can't wait till somebody reads that line. and there are so many lines and descriptions, analogies and metaphors and simile, whatever, that you got a gift, brother. And
thank you.
We've been excited to have you on at the moment you agreed to come on. So
well, we actually
thank you so much.
I've saying that for months. Hey, but what's the title or the working title of the next book?
Razorblade Tears.
Oh, you have such good titles, man.
No, we're going to talk you into changing that, right?
Yeah, right. Like, what was the first sentence of that book?
What's the first line? The first line.
I know, right? We'll just jump right to that. The first line is actually, no good has ever come of seeing men with badges at your door first thing in the morning.
Listen, that is true.
100% true.
That is true, and I've had that badge. I've been on that door.
Well, Shawn, you survived the main portion of the interview, so congratulations for doing that. But
thank you.
We're about to blow your mind now. We do something on this show called the lightning round. And this is the portion of the show where very little thought was put into these questions, and we require very little thought for your answers.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
So today I am the host, so I am going to ask my first question. All right. Besides a cell phone, can't pick that.
Okay.
What's the one luxury item you couldn't afford as a kid, but you cannot live without now?
You're going to laugh when I tell you this. Name brand cereal.
No. So true.
I'm not laughing.
So true. I grew up the same
When we were
way.
kids, we couldn't afford like Fruit Loops and corn. We used to get fruit rings.
Yeah.
And like my mom would say, it's the same thing. No, it's not.
No, it tastes so different.
And the sooner you realize that, the happier we'll all be.
And it doesn't come in a box. It comes in the bag.
In a bag. On the bottom shelf.
Yes.
I'm one of 6 kids, so we had a bunch of that.
I grew up in a chicken coop that was converted into an apartment. So yes, I got brother. All right. Number 2. In 3 words, describe your first visit to New York City.
3 words.
So drunk.
That was my line.
So drunk. My first trip to New York City, we went up there and we went out to the bar, and my girlfriend at the time, she was tired, so she laid down. It was like 11 o'clock, and I went downstairs and went across the street to the bar, and I told the guy, I said, hey, well, how long is it till last call? And he's like, last call's 4 o'clock. And I was like, set him up. Let's go.
Sounds like our trip last year, boys.
Yeah, that was our trip.
All right. Here's my last question.
All right.
Money is no object. What muscle car do we see in your garage before any others?
57 Plymouth Fury.
All right. The man
Not a Hellcat.
Yes, with the Hellcat motor.
Yeah.
Wall tires.
Yeah.
You're dying in that, man. You're dying in it.
All right.
I'm up. All right.
All right.
As a son of the South, what is your favorite Southern food?
Cornbread.
Oh, me too.
Right.
Me too.
I'm from the north, and I love cornbread.
No, cornbread.
I'm excited for BoucherCon 2021 because it's in NOLA, and there's very few cities that I like to eat more in NOLA. So it would be something like red beans and rice or something for me.
Crawfish etouffee.
Yeah.
Etouffee is good. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so my second question, what is the best or your favorite example of film noir that you've seen?
I think my favorite is a Double Indemnity with Fred Ward and Barbara Stanwyck. Just because when I used to watch it as a kid, we used to be like the Saturday night CBS movie. We didn't have cable.
Yeah.
And that came on, and my grandfather and I stayed up watching it one night. My grandfather was a very taciturn man, but every once in a while he would have a really cool turn of phrase. And at the end of that movie, I remember him tapping me on the shoulder. I was like 11 or 12, and he used to call me Big Head. And he's like, hey, Big Head, you see that movie? And I was like, yeah, Granddad, I saw it. He's like, don't ever let no woman do you like that. And I was like,
Speaking from experience.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Did Grandma punch him in the arm at that point?
Well, she gave him the eye. She gave him the look of death. So.
All right, my last question is, what is the best funeral home joke?
One that you could tell.
It must be good.
Okay. I think the best one is not even a joke, but it's a little limerick that a funeral director said, an older one said one time. We had a service and some people got out of pocket. It's actually the first scene of Darkest Prayer is based on this incident. And after the incident, he said, fools and flies, I do despise, but the more I see of fools, the more I like flies. So,
That's awesome.
And accurate.
Yes.
True.
Hey, we talked about alternative titles. What would be the alternative title to Blacktop Wasteland?
Ride Like Hell.
Oh, I like that one too, though.
That's a good one too.
I like that one.
Hey, all right. So here's my next question. You're destined to be on the New York Times bestseller list. I'd put money on that, no doubt. You really are. But what are you gonna do when you celebrate when that happens? Is it champagne? You quitting your day job, or are you just gonna shrug and continue writing?
I think it'll be well, I'll put it like this. There was a large plan before the pandemic of going to New York City and getting a room at a very fancy hotel and drinking from the Upper West Side of Battery Park. So that's on hold. That was the plan, I swear to God. But now I think I'm going to splurge and buy myself a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle.
Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah.
That's on my list, brother.
And take a couple of shots and then actually go to sleep and not write for a couple of days.
Pappy Van Winkle is actually my publishing celebration. So
that's the second time someone has said Pappy.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we all. I think
legendary,
so.
brother.
Why not?
Fantastic. All right. Here's my last question. Unlike other major states in our area, Virginia isn't home to any professional sports teams.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your sport? What's your team?
My favorite sport. Okay, I gotta give two. My favorite sport growing up and up to a few years ago was football, and my team was the Oakland Raiders. And the only reason it was the Oakland Raiders is because I liked that they portrayed themselves as villains. I watched when I was a kid. I watched John Matuzak and Lala Zato tackle Boomer Esiason, and when they got up, instead of like offering him the hands, they walked on him.
Yeah,
they walked and went to the side, and I was like, "That's my team. I like that. I'm down with that." But I was a high school wrestler, and I love MMA, so I'm a big MMA sports fan.
All right, who's your guy in MMA?
Oh, John Jones. I know he's got a lot of problems. He got a lot of problems, but, when he steps in the ring, they're very, there's a lot of people that like to say they're the baddest man on the planet, but there's very few people that can knock you out with a back elbow. So.
Yeah.
Dude, I just saw him on social media. He was talking to like protesters or something, and they had no idea who they were talking to. And
once they found out who it was, they handed him their spray paint. I think that's a wise decision. So,
smart, very smart,
and one of their lives.
Don't fuck with that guy unless you have like a gun, and then like three guys behind you with a gun to shoot you when he takes your gun and shoots you.
As a friend of mine said one time about one of our local tough guys. I wouldn't fight him if he said something about my mama. It's like maybe she started it.
He just agreed.
She was asking for it.
My mama might fight him, but I'm not fighting.
He's a badass.
Well, Shawn, it was wonderful to have you on the show today. Truly, you're an inspiration to a lot of folks, I know. And I know the three of us cannot wait for this book to drop. And I know there's some big things coming your way, truly. And we cannot wait for all that to happen to you. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy, by the way. So.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers to you, pal.
Cheers to you guys.
The crew would like to thank Mr. Shawn S.A. Cosby for coming on our show today. A fantastic writer and an even better human being. And we cannot wait for you all to read Blacktop Wasteland.
Do it.
And join us for every Monday with another best-selling author. Gentlemen, raise a toast.
Love that interview, man.
What a great guy.
Great interview.
Cheers. Yeah, 1 second.
Oh, man.
That was a great show. We were back.
Dude, I loved him.
I had to kick him off because he wasn't going to leave. He just shut his computer. He was still there. And he's talking about his knees.
Sounds like my life.
Here we go.
What are we doing? Who's
I'm
talking?
going to do the outro for
No, you're not.
Shawn S.A. Cosby. And this is me.
Who?
Me.
3, 2. Yeah.
Yeah. The crew would love to thank Shawn S.A. Cosby for coming on the Crew Review show today. The man is an up-and-coming author that no one can deny that his writing and writing style is truly one of a kind. We cannot wait for Blacktop Wasteland to come out. And, yeah, I'll just try that again.
Oh, that was good. You were doing good.
Good so far.
I'm like, do I end it? Do I not end it? Do I end it? Do I not end it? The crew wants to thank Mr. Shawn S.A. Cosby for coming on our show today. Truly a fantastic guy and an even better writer. I can't wait for everybody to see
See what?
the book, or do we want to read it?
I'd say he's a fantastic writer, but better guy. He's a fantastic guy, but he's a way better writer than he is a human being.
It's all right.
I'd agree. I'd agree.
Spectacular. The crew would like to thank special
Agent.
The crew would like to thank.
He's an SA. I used to be SA Albany.
Wow.
He's SA Cosby.
Hell of a
There you go.
background for a crime writer.
What?
Ready?
Yeah.